Our next story is about the UN Climate Summit, the annual event where the world comes together to wring their hands in despair, to give grand speeches and to achieve nothing of real value. We're talking about the COP Climate Summit. This year it's the 29th edition, the COP29. It's being held in Azerbaijan, one of the world's major natural gas producers. I know that sounds absurd, but this is technically a step up from the last time. The COP28 was held in the United Arab Emirates, which is of course a major oil producer. So moving from an oil producer to a natural gas producer is an upgrade. But it just shows how ridiculous the whole thing has become. COP climate summits have become a farce over the years. They don't really achieve anything tangible when it comes to climate change. Last year, we were at the COP28 summit in Dubai. The attending countries made a bold declaration. They said they would reduce the use of fossil fuels eventually, over time. That was a grand achievement of the COP28, the release of that lukewarm statement. This year, the plan is to promote climate funding via a global carbon credit market. Here's how it works. Polluting countries will have to mitigate the damage they do by sponsoring green projects in other countries. This lets polluting countries offset their own carbon emissions. That's the concept in a nutshell. The system should get finalized at the COP29, at least that's the plan. Another major task is expanding climate finance, basically creating a fund that poor countries can take loans from to pay for green projects. The goal is to get this fund to $1 trillion every year, 1 trillion. It's an ambitious task and it would need backers from all over the world. But that is going to be a problem because the turnout this time is lackluster. Leaders from major countries are missing, like the United States. President Joe Biden is not in Azerbaijan for the summit. He sent his climate envoy instead. And it makes sense. His party just lost the US election. Donald Trump will be taking over soon, and Trump does not care about climate change. So there was probably no point in Biden attending. There isn't much he can do anymore. Biden's climate envoy gave a bleak assessment.
In January, we're going to inaugurate a president whose relationship to climate change is captured by the words hoax and fossil fuels. He's vowed to dismantle our environmental safeguards and once again withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement. That is what he has said, and we should believe him.
So the US won't be fighting climate change in a few months. It's the world's second largest carbon emitter. And as things stand, there isn't much the world can do without American support, making this COP29 summit even more useless than usual. Then there's China, the world's largest carbon emitter. Chinese President Xi Jinping is not at the summit either. Neither is the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen. Normally, all these leaders show up at the COP summits. They don't do very much, but they make their presence felt. This time, they aren't even bothering to do that. What does that tell you? How effective will the summit really be without the major players? It seems some smaller nations have taken the hint, like Papua New Guinea. This is an island nation, one of the most vulnerable to sea level rise. So climate change is a very important subject there. But even Papua New Guinea pulled out of the summit saying, and I'm quoting, "It was a total waste of time." The whole summit seems like an exercise in futility, but it gets worse. While the big nations are missing, there is one surprising inclusion.
It's true that we haven't taken part in the COP since 2021, and we have fought and worked hard to be able to share the voice of the Afghan people with the world, which is very much affected by climate change. Indeed, climate change is a global problem. A single government or the people of a single country cannot adapt and take action.
That was the Taliban's climate representative. Yes, the Taliban are attending COP29. Azerbaijan gave them observer status. They're not a full-fledged delegation because the United Nations has not officially recognized this regime. But it seems like an attempt by Azerbaijan to legitimize the Taliban. And they're using the UN Climate Summit to do this, which discredits the summit even further. Not only is it a useless event, it is now also a vehicle to normalize ties with the Taliban. And don't get me wrong, the Afghans should definitely have a voice. They suffer disproportionately due to climate change. Heavy floods killed more than 300 Afghans this year alone, and they were exacerbated because of climate change, because of global warming. But the United Nations need to figure out how to engage with the Taliban. They need a concrete plan of action. They can't just allow the Taliban to get a backdoor entry into global affairs via the COP29. This year's climate summit will be remembered for this, for allowing the Taliban to attend. All other promises will be forgotten or postponed or cancelled by leaders like Trump. So then, do we really need the COP summits? Or is it finally time to do away with this farce?